All right, good morning. Just excited about the start of fall camp. Had our pictures this morning as a team and going to progress through today and get our guys into some meetings and preliminary work tonight, and then start our first practice in the morning. So it's been a great summer. Excited about our players and how hard they've worked and how our staff has worked with them in the ways that we could football-wise, and then also our strength staff and all the things they've done with our players on a consistent basis in the weight room. So excited for this fall camp and ready for questions.
Zach and then Matt, I guess you talk about Zach takes like.
It's been a while. It's been a while. Unmute my mic.
Programmed.
Just, I mean, how different are maybe guys' bodies, guys, athletic measurements, just kind of however you want to measure them coming out of, summer weightlifting, summer conditioning, all that, when you don't have nearly as many sort of restrictions on, who can be together in groups and who can kind of work out when and things like that. Just basically how much fitter, I guess, do you feel like your roster is right now?
Yeah, it's a completely different feel than it was a year ago, and I'm sure is going to say the same thing. At this time a year ago, our strength staff hadn't even been with our guys hardly at all in person. So very, very challenging set of weeks leading up to fall camp a year ago. Now you have not just the summer, but you had also all of January and February and March and April and going into spring ball. We had 8 weeks prior to spring ball. You have your 3 weeks of spring ball time period there of working out as well, and then the couple weeks right before summer, and then you had the 9 weeks in the summertime. So really love where our team is at physically. I think the guys on the line of scrimmage, that was really hard for them, especially offensive linemen, to be in shape a year ago. So getting their body compositions leaned up was extremely high priority for us, and I think that's been very, very successful this summer. And really that excites me more than anything is just the physical condition of our guys, And so just from the speed perspective and lean muscle mass and explosive power, all those things that we really emphasize as a strength program, I would say as a collective group, it's at a very high level for our team, and which is much needed. And we got a lot of players that played last year that were coming back this year, and we just want them to continue to grow and develop physically, and I think that's what's happened with our strength staff. So very, very encouraged by it, and I know our staff we had a meeting with them a couple days ago, talked about all of our players and went through their numbers and just the thoughts from our strength staff who spent every day with them in the last 2 months. So excited about where we are.
Matt and Tom Brew.
With camp starting tomorrow, any positions on each side of the ball that maybe you're kind of anxious to see, either because you're wondering where they're at or you have high expectations for them?
Well, I think that we got some new faces on the defensive line, so I want to see those guys, and I'm looking forward to seeing that group take another step. Some of those younger guys that I think have had some good off-season work. I want to see how that translates to the field. And then on the offensive line as well, we once again kind of a similar theme. We've got some new faces, but got a lot of younger guys that you want to see have a great off-season, and I feel like they have done that, and I want to see that translate to the field. So those would be the two that stick out to me. On the perimeter, we've got some talented, skilled guys that you just want to see continue to elevate their game. Nobody to me on our entire roster did not have the expectation of elevating what they do, whether it's, certain areas that we focused on with them individually or what, but it was, and it may not all be the same for each person, but to me, just a collective improvement of our guys in their knowledge of the game for some of these guys, but also it's the physical part.
Tom and then Jim.
Tom, from November through spring and summer and such, the questions we have to ask you about Michael every time has always sort of been, come the 1st of August, you'll make the determination as to how much he can do and where he's at, and hopefully he would be close to 100% if not there. So here today on August 5th, can you kind of tell us where you stand with him and what you want to try to accomplish with him in the next 4 weeks?
Yeah, I think, yes, I've been asked that many times for sure, and I understand why. But I feel like that as you go through this process, we have other guys that are coming back from season-ending injuries. You're just constantly, progressing them through their rehab, and it's about strengthening the muscles in that area. It's about the change of direction ability to, anytime it's a lower leg injury or lower body injury, you're always talking about, can they accelerate? Can they slow down? Can they move the way they need to move? And so those are all cyclical. You go through and you have a progression that you're looking for. So we feel really good about where he is. Does he need to continue? Yes, that's part of it. It's a process, to be able to go through and say, okay, this is the goal date, September 4th, is to get him to be 100% for that date. And so as you move through fall camp, we got a good plan for that. So you go through, and obviously he'll be fully practicing, doing everything with us. Nobody's going to be hitting him, just as the case with all of our quarterbacks. We'll be in blue jerseys like they always are. But probably just maybe a heightened sense of just making sure everybody stays. Because, you just get guys that trip or fall or whatever in different drills. And so you want to eliminate all that threat. And but continue to develop. And so, but I think that he's right where I kind of expected him to be coming into fall camp, where I hoped he would be coming into fall camp, and expecting to be our starter on September 4th. So to me, that's really the most accurate part I can say in regards to that. And I feel good about where he is mentally and physically. And we just, I know it's been a long haul for him, and he's once again responded and stepped up to the challenge.
Tom, you mentioned the word expectations, which that's not a word that has been with Indiana football for a long time, but it is now. With the totality of the transfers, the player development, everything that is going on right now, right here, what are your expectations? Where do you think this team really needs to finish this year for it to achieve what it can achieve?
Well, we've been pretty clear on our goals, and we haven't shied away from, we finished second in the Big Ten East last year, and our goal is to play in the Big Ten championship game and win the game, and so, but there's a lot of things that have to happen before that occurs, and right now the next step is having a great fall camp, and you mentioned there's been some transfers, and those guys have to come in and mesh with our team, and, everything you've done in the offseason is really individually driven. Some player practices, or that's the biggest part we've done together. We're not out there for those as coaches. And so this will be the first time these guys have been around us in the football setting as far as the new guys. So how well this team comes together is going to be a major factor. How well we perform on game day. I mean, how hard are these guys willing to work? And there's going to be, we have our first team meeting tonight. We had last night's was just kind of to make sure everybody's back, but tonight really starts fall camp in my mind. And so in regards to that, and there's going to be very specific challenges with our guys, and we've mapped out what we expect them to do. So to me, that those how they buy into that, how hard they work, how focused they are in meetings and taking notes and being such an attention to that process. What we've been challenging them is chasing greatness every day. How do you get 1% better every day? And so that's yet to be determined. Do we have talent? Yes, we have talent. Do we have a lot of good players? Yes, I believe we have a lot of good football players. And I love our coaching staff. But how well this 2021 team meshes together, the chemistry that we create, how hard we play for each other, with each other, and how well we perform each and every day. And the thing about it is, to me, you got to get better every week. And so if those things all happen as they are, then I'm excited about what this team can become. But it's really up to them, and it's up to our coaching staff. And so that, to me, is a challenge we have to address every day. But I got high expectations for this football team, and I haven't shied away from that. I believe we can have a very talented, effective offense, a very talented, effective defense, and I think we have talent on special teams. But special teams is an area where everybody's involved, and the buy into those drills and all the things that we ask these guys to do, and how hard they play, and the opportunities they can create, and the field position that's won on those plays will be a major factor in this season. So a lot of expectations, and that's been the challenge, is to go from believing, and I believe we have a team that believes, to now expecting a certain outcome on game day.
Tom, you just alluded to that chemistry. You've got 17 starters returning, but then a bunch of potential impact transfers. I'm just curious about how that meshing process has gone so far, and how critical is it going to be to kind of continue as you roll into these next 4 weeks?
And I think it's a great question, and I think the way I look at that is we still we don't vary the process we go through to recruit guys, whether they're transfers or whether they're out of high school. And so getting guys that fit with us, that to me heightens the opportunity for the mesh. When guys understand the LEO culture that we've created, and within that culture, it's, I don't care who gets credit because it's not about me. You bring in guys that it's all about them and they want all the credit, then that will fracture your your culture, and that will fracture your locker room, and that will not allow us to be our best on game day, because the best team wins on game day, not the best group of individuals. And so that to me is the key point, and that's where, and that really is yet to be determined, because it is a new group, and every year you have that. Your previous year, no matter what happens, good or bad, that group will not be the same. There are going to be new guys, and there'll be new coaches usually, and at certain spots. And so bottom line is that's the key. Last year's group had a great chemistry. They played well together, and they found a way to make critical plays at critical times, and that's what the great teams do. And so we got to continue to elevate that and keep chasing greatness. So to me, that's the focus, is how can these guys buy into the culture and want to make this about each other and not about themselves.
And Tom, a quick follow, just the status of Jalen Williams going into fall camp.
Yeah, so right now he's fully with the team, and gone through all the processes we need to go through with him off the field, and handled that as a program. And so he's with us today, and will be with us moving forward.
Tom, obviously one of the more interesting battles I think coming into camp is at running back. Basically, what you've got several talented guys you're going to be looking at there between Carr and Baldwin and everything. What are, I guess, some of the most important things you're looking for as you try to make a decision on, and I guess, who starts and how that rotation looks for? Just what's important to you for what you want to see out of that position in camp, and as you determine who does what?
Yeah, it's a critical position for us. Obviously you have some talented guys there. We've had the guys coming back that you mentioned. We got, with Sampson and David and Mr. Baldwin. So I just think that, Tim showed in the Maryland game what he can do at this level, and Sampson's shown in the past what he can do, and David has as well. But then you bring in a guy like, Steven, who hasn't been here, and so once again, it's all got to be earned. So as we even gave a quick little challenge last night about, their resume, that we evaluate, and the way they present themselves every day in the weight room, and how those coaches feel about them. That's part of it. That's part of the evaluation process. That's kind of phase one of the fall camp piece. And then now you get into fall camp, say how they handle the day-to-day, and when we start practicing, and then all the things that it makes to become a complete back. Picking up pressures, and being good in pass pro, and being a complete guy. And can you catch out of the backfield? Can you obviously, make a guy miss, when you got the ball in your hand, and read, understand the playbook, and all those little things that it takes. So to me, those are, we'll obviously have multiple guys playing at that position, which is what you want. And you need a lot of depth at that spot for sure, and we feel good about that depth there. But how the order's going to be, that's up to them, And that's what I tell our players. It's their job to convince their position coach that they deserve to play. That's on them. That's their responsibility. And so film doesn't lie. We'll watch the film very closely. We grade everything, grade every practice, and have a lot of meetings. That's one nice thing about fall camp. It's just constant. There's no academics right now. It's just 2.5 weeks of just pure football and being able to focus on that. And so we'll find out who the guys are. I think it becomes, I have said this many times, but time and pressure reveal, okay? It shows who you really are, time and pressure. And so fall camp will create both of those. And it can be a grind. Last year, they didn't really experience fall camp. It wasn't a true, the length of time here, it was very segmented and very, isolated and controlled, and we're in, we're out. We didn't have meetings at night. It was a way different feel. So we're back to that flow again, and so we're going to find out who's going to be ready and who can be counted upon in that position room to be able to be put on the field on game day.
Tom, you've got essentially a record number of kids that have been recognized preseason-wise on these watch lists. I mean, Geiger's been putting out something every day, 2 or 3 times a day sometimes, but that's a tremendous, what it says a lot about Indiana's program and the rise in this program. How are you dealing with that, number one? And number two, how do you feel about having all these kids being recognized?
Well, first of all, I don't have any vote on any of them, okay, that get the list that get put on. And they're all preseason. So, I mean, it is what it is. You can talk about it, and it's a great talking point. It doesn't really mean anything. But it's, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, okay? So they use those based on people's past and how they performed. Those predictions are put out, just like preseason polls. They don't really mean anything. And yet we talk about them, and you ask questions about them, but you have to earn the right to get put on a list. You know, you don't just show up and get put somewhere just because of a certain name usually. So I guess it's a positive thing for sure that you get a chance for your program to be recognized, that we have players that people perceive to be some of the best at their position. And so that's a compliment to our coaching staff and to what the program is building. But at the same time, you know, it's the earmuffs and blinders. It's like, can you filter that and not that to become a distraction? You know, and that's where, like I said, that phrase is both positive and negative. Yeah, you got to be able to understand both types of situations. That, you know, maybe somebody can feel slighted when they get left off of certain things. Well, you know, that may motivate you. You know, or and the other side of it is, hey, people start telling you how good they think you're going to be, and then you let up in your preparation. Well, then that's, you know, that's the whole rat poison phrase that everybody, you know, Coach Saban has made famous. But the bottom line is that it's maturity. Can you handle it? You know, and so I think it's important that you talk about expectations about certain things, but because I think if you just ignore it, you don't really do any benefit to your players. But at the same time, you know, it's just like the position room I just mentioned. You got to earn it, you know, and that is earned on every game, you know. And so, yeah, preseason things are great. It gives you some positive momentum. It helps in recruiting. It shows you where you're at, but it doesn't mean anything on the field. You got to prove it every time you take the field. So that's what I'm excited for and get into fall camp. So basically, once that, you know, this starts here tonight, you know, all that stuff is all behind us, and it's about proving that you deserve to play. And I love the competition that we've got in each room to be able to say, even though a guy might even be on one of those lists, that he ain't going to fight for his position, because if he doesn't, somebody's going to beat him out. And that, to me, is the way it ought to be. And I think that's the iron sharpening iron concept that we preach so much here in this program. And I know that's what helps you get better, you know. And so we're all motivated by wanting to be the very, very best. And so, but I just like the way a lot of those guys that have been listed, I like the way they've been working this summer. And that just shows me that they're motivated and they know they got something to prove on the field.
Yeah, one of your obvious goals is to improve the rushing numbers. When you look at this team, how can you make that happen, or what makes you optimistic that can happen?
Well, I think it starts up front. So I think when you look at our offensive line and I look at the way they've worked this offseason, that excites me. The meetings we've had with our strength staff about those guys and talking about each one of them individually, that is encouraging. And I feel like that their experience that they have, some young guys that we expect to step up, give us depth there, is going to be critical. And so I think that's step number one. And I think step number two is your running back room, you know, as well. You got a group of guys, we've already addressed that group, and you got talent in that room. You got to have talent, you know. I've always said this, the good Lord decides who the great running backs are, you know. So it's a God-given talent to be able to make a guy miss in space and be able to do something special with the football. I really believe that, you know. Now you can get stronger and tougher and faster along the way, for sure. And so, but that's part of it. And then schematically, you know, to me, being able to, you know, do some things, we've made a big emphasis on that this summer and this off season, to be able to make that a priority for us. And so we have. And so to me, you take those three things together, and I believe that you're going to get a different result, but we got to go prove it. You know, we can't, it just doesn't matter what I say, right? It's got to be what our players believe, how hard they're willing to work, and what they prove on game day. And so to me, running the football is a critical part of this. And there's no certain number that you have to get, in my opinion. It's about you got to be effective. You got to be able to run the ball when you need to run the football. And whether it's closing out a game, starting a game, being able to keep them off you for your throw game, all different things. It's about that balance that you want as an offense, where you feel like you can do the things that you want to do, and based on the scheme and what they're giving you. So that, to me, is a huge priority for us, absolutely. And I expect us to be better in that area.
Kind of a double-barreled question. This is the second off-season where you've lost a coordinator to a head coaching job, in the lack of maybe a more artful way of asking it. Do you feel like you get better as you go through that, in terms of basically how to deal with that when you're losing a guy you probably don't want to, but obviously you understand why he's going, sure. But finding a way to kind of work through that? And specific to the new face at coordinator this year, just what do you think Coach Warren, maybe what do you think he'll bring that's a little bit different to that defense, whether it's philosophy, attitude, specific things he might do?
Yeah, I think you get better. I mean, you do something more than once, you learn from it, and obviously, both those guys that have had opportunities to go be head coaches was a great thing for them, and I was happy for them. I genuinely was. You hate to lose great guys, I get that, but that's part of having success. And so, I think that even shows you as you bring guys here to say, hey, this is what the guys that have been here, this is what they've been able to do, and that is a great motivator for attracting high-level coaches that want to have that same opportunity in their future, just like I did. And so when you think about the defensive side of the football, we do have a system that we have here. It's a little bit different than the offense in regards to, when I bring in a defensive coordinator to come in, it's not like he's just, bringing his system. He's going to learn our system, and it's obviously there's things they're going to put their personality on, and we've made some adjustments for sure, like you always do. But at the same time, to get more specific about Coach Warren, his attention to detail is just impressive, and I think the military background was a big attraction for me. The way he commands the room by personality and by just tone and structure, and his discipline that he has is impressive, and that's a leadership quality that he has that I think is really strong, and just being able to, bring some different ideas and some different things. We're all looking to grow and change every year, and that's the case with this group. And so, he put his own personality on it. But I'm going to continue to be in every single meeting, and that's where I get to say the difference between offense and defense for me is that's always been the case. That'll always be the case, and I'll sit in the linebacker room predominantly, which is where he works with those guys. So I'll be with him a lot. And so but trust him. And so it'll look a little different for sure, but not a lot, and so, but I just think that's, we have a defensive system that we believe in here, and our kids believe in it, and they play extremely high level. But do we got to get better? Yes. We did some great things in 2020, but there's some areas that we knew weren't good enough, and so we got to get better. And so we've addressed those, and obviously during fall camp, it's going to be a major emphasis on that. And but right now, it's a matter of getting as many guys as we can at a high level of understanding it so we can execute and play our tails off for 60 minutes.
Coach, do you get this? Is there more of a sense of urgency starting out the season against a Big Ten opponent than a non-conference opponent?
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the biggest differences. We've had both situations since I've been here, and there's without a doubt a built-in natural sense of urgency that's created by playing a conference opponent. And now this is the first time we played one on the road, since I've been here. And so, but just an opponent of their caliber, as good as they have been for so many years and are going to be again this year. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be very challenging without question. But what I do believe, and I've said this before, that the process you go through, everything gets heightened. So I think it allows you to get even better than if you're maybe playing somebody different to start the season. So there's always excitement about game one. That will always be the case, but it's cranked up a few notches, because of where we're playing and who we're playing.
Tom, I know you've discussed the players involved and you have a better running game this year, but obviously, too, we've got Nick as your offensive coordinator for the second year, and you have Dylan McCullough coming in as the running backs coach who's got a lot of NFL experience with him behind it as well, too. Will we see a lot of different kinds of things going forward this year in the running game? Kind of a different look in some ways, or no?
Well, I think you hit on a good point. You think about a football team. You always talk about how much you improve from game one to game two. In a season. Well, I think as a coordinator, I think about myself and my growth, and I was a whole lot better the second year than I was the first year. And Coach Sharon did a great job last year in a lot of areas, and so he had things he and I talked about he wants to work on. But I do think he'll be better. It's another year doing it, another year just that experience. You can't replace that experience. And so, and then you add a guy like Dylan, who and there's no question. I mean, he where he's coming from. We're a product of the people that we're around. And that influences us. That's one perk of going to the NFL and then coming back to college. I've seen a lot of guys do that and be able to bring a lot of good things back, and just whether it could be schematic things, it could be drills, it could be organizational things. We talked about even in the way we're doing things, even scheduling wise, we made some adjustments based on some things that he was around with the Chiefs, and how we go through fall camp schedule. So that's a benefit of bringing guys like that to your staff. So I do. I'm not going to give you too many specifics. But you'll see week one. in Iowa City, what the differences might be. But without question, we got to get better in that area. So I expect it to be something that's focused on all fall camp.
Tom, you obviously mentioned defensive line is one of the more important position groups at the top. I mean, first of all, how big of sort of rotations do you want? I mean, how many bodies do you want to be cycling in, and what do you want more out of that group as a whole, maybe than you got a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you go through. I don't think we have, hey, we're going to play this many guys. You're going to be rotating too deep for sure, so that's, you can just do the math on that, but yeah, you got to have a whole bunch of guys, and I would even go as far as to say you got to be almost 3 deep, to be able to rotate those guys. And because they're under duress on every snap, and that's always been our philosophy here. A lot of places do the same thing. So, getting a whole bunch of guys that can play. You obviously need 10, 12 guys that you feel good about. But at the same time, looking back on last season, last year was a little different than we've had in the past. We had, if you just go through and even look at the production, and I did like an 8-year study of this in different places beyond even being here within the system. And our D-line wasn't as productive last year individually as they have been in the past. And so to me, that's a challenge of that group. To make more plays. Jerome Johnson was very productive, but he kind of stuck out. In regards to tackles for loss and sacks and create negative plays. And there's some other guys that weren't near as productive, even guys that played his same position. So that was very obvious statistically. So to me, I want to see those guys, and the scheme is designed for the guys to make plays that are able to make plays, and so everybody got a free opportunity to be that guy, and like I even think of one game we had multiple sacks that we missed. We had contact on the quarterback and didn't get him on the ground, so I think we left a lot of plays unfinished on the defensive line. And so to me, talking about finishing better, playing, more aggressively with that group, more fundamentally sound, guys being a year older, being stronger, being tougher, and that's what the weight room gives our guys. So that toughness piece to me, I just want to see us be tougher there and make more plays, But once again, it's because if they ain't going to make them, then the linebackers and the corners are going to make them, because that's kind of how we roll, and our safeties are very, very active as well. So it's basically sick them, and first guy there gets rewarded.
Kind of a two-part question here. You have a lot of returning starters on defense. How confident are you going into the season, having that much experience coming back, and also, aside from, wanting to get shutouts every single game, what are some of the expectations that you have on the entire defense as a whole?
Well, you sit there and you think about your team, and you look at them, and I've always said this, that, if you want to have a great defense, you have to have great linebackers, and that's a room for us that we're excited about. A lot of production out of that room last year. A lot of those guys, well, they're all back, every one of them, and then getting Thomas back from injury. So just to me, it's the whole defensive side of the football is a group I have a high expectation for. I want us to be a top 10 defense. We've talked about being a top 25 defense, and we were last year. We were number one in a few categories nationally, but I want us to be a top 10 defense. And so to me, it's just continuing to rise the bar. We've talked about, first years here being a top 25 defense, and what that means statistically, and then to be able to keep elevating level play. To me, you don't ever stay where you are. If you don't have that edge about you, if you don't have that sense of urgency in your preparation, we're playing against such great competition every week that you'll take a step back if you don't. And so we have to have that within us. And like I said, last year doesn't mean anything to this year other than the experience. So that does add value. And you mentioned the number of guys we got coming back. That's a big deal. That's why, when people go through and evaluate a team, and the number of guys you have coming back does make a difference, because that experience does matter. And we do have a lot of guys experienced in all three levels, of our defense. So, I have high expectations for these guys and for this unit, and I want us to be, the best, if not one of the best defenses in the Big Ten. And that, to me, is clearly the standard that we've set for our guys. And, you want to go win the Big Ten, you better have the best defense in the Big Ten. So that's the goal.
Tom, two quick things. One, number one, are you moving anybody? Are you taking somebody else's position? Are you putting somebody else in a different position than they played a year ago? And number two, do you have anybody that's going into camp that is like Mike Penix, who's going to be held back a little bit, or is dealing with an injury that he still has to overcome?
You know, we have a few guys. I'm not going to get into specifics on some of them at this point. We do have some guys that are coming back from surgeries, and they're at different levels of recovery. And whether they'll be ready for week 1 or not, we don't know yet. But that's somewhat typical. But obviously, he's the one that everybody talks about. You know, even a guy like Marcelino Ball, you know, just going through his progression and feel good about where he's at and that he'll be able to be ready for September 4th. But and some other guys too that have had some of that situation. But I think the biggest thing for us, you know, is making sure that we get all of our guys ready, you know, and like so wherever they're at, and I do know that's you know, could vary based on their past circumstances. Now, your first part of your question about position changes. None really comes to mind. You know, I know we kind of sometimes we do those and don't think about it if we've done it earlier. And we really like, you know, last year we made some change where, you know, Raheem Lane went from corner to safety, which he's now pretty much everybody knows he's there. And so that would be a change from the last time he played. He did not play last year, you know. So, but the rest of the guys on defense are pretty much in the similar spots that they were, you know. So I don't see any change there. And offensively, kind of same thing. So we don't have, you know, we obviously have on the offensive line guys can play multiple positions, you know, and that's the case, which is what you want, you know, especially if a guy's a guard, he can oftentimes want to be able to play center, and rarely can he play guard and tackle, but there's a few that can do that. But don't see any significant changes there. But I feel like that, you know, I like where we're at physically, and the guys that we do have to get squared away and get them, you know, in position to get rehabbed properly, we'll keep doing that.
Coach, could you touch on the depth at the running back spot?
Well, to me, you know, I feel like that there's several guys that have the talent and the ability to be a very good football player in this conference. And I think there's more than a few, okay? And so how that plays itself out, you know, I'm excited to see. That's one of the positions that I look forward to watching throughout fall camp and evaluating. And it's a good, I guess you'd say, problem to have, you know, is more guys in there. And there's several walk-ons that are very talented players that have come here and have just busted their tails and have earned the right. And they got a lot of reps in the spring because of some guys coming back from some injuries and just the depth there. And so to me, that's a position where, and I want to see those guys be involved on special teams too. And that's where they help you, because those guys are, you know, 200-pound-ish guys that can run, you know, and should be, you know, some of your best football players on the football team, you know. And so that, to me, that's why I like that room, and I like our tight end room. There's a lot of depth in our tight end room. Those guys are special teams guys, you know, big bodies. Those are even bigger, taller, longer guys, heavier guys that can run and move around and should help this football team get better, because those special teams, you know, whether the cover units, the return units, man, that separates us now. That's where you start talking about wanting to do special things as a program. You got to be elite on special teams, in both your specialists and as a collective group. And that's a huge priority for us, and we make a big emphasis of it. And to me, that's going to be a big key that we don't always talk about, but it will be, I think, the big key in us having success in 2021. Awesome. Have a great day. LEO.